Welcome to this segment of the Raising the Bar series, a closer look at parental involvement. Our presenters today are Dr. Kathleen Hughes, a research analyst at the Learning Bar, who will be providing an overview of what research tells us about parental involvement. I'll then be taking a closer look at the unique features that are available in our Partners in Learning survey. And finally, we'll hear from Pierre Plourde, a principal at George Street Middle School, and we're all in Fredericton, New Brunswick.
Hello, I'm your first speaker today, Dr. Kathleen Hughes. I specialize in social development and the social relationships that can impact children's educational outcomes. Today I'm going to be giving you a brief research overview of parental involvement. We know that parental involvement is important for a variety of reasons. First, students of more involved parents tend to be more likely to engage in school and to achieve. These students also tend to have more positive attitudes towards learning and education in general. And these students tend to have higher levels of self-esteem and more positive mental health. Moreover, students of more involved parents tend to be at a lower risk for school dropout and delinquency. But these are not even all the benefits. We know that parental involvement also helps parents, in that parents who become more involved tend to feel more confident, motivated, and interested in their own education. And finally, schools tend to benefit, in that having more involved parents in a community tends to improve the parent-teacher relationships, the teacher morale, and the school climate. So parental involvement is important, but what exactly is parent involvement, and how can a school community go about improving it? Well, it's important to understand that there's actually two subtypes of parental involvement. First, there's home-based parent engagement, and this is anything a parent can do in the home to help encourage their child to be more involved in school. This is things including parents answering school surveys or notices sent home, also monitoring students' homework, and just being a positive role model towards learning. The second type of parental involvement is school-based parent participation, and these are the types of interactions between a parent and the school community. These include things such as volunteering, attending meetings, and other functions at the school. It's important to note that these two different subtypes of parental involvement are independent, and parents don't necessarily have to do both. For instance, a parent may not show any school-based participation, but may be very supportive and encouraging at home. Now, aside from those two types of parental involvement, there's also two main motivations behind parental involvement. First, parents may become more involved to help enhance their child's school outcomes. That is, these are positive things a parent can do to help improve the school environment or their child's learning, such as attending events, responding to surveys, or taking on volunteer opportunities. Overall, these enhancing behaviors tend to work to help increase the amount of positive outcomes for their child at school. The second type of motivation behind parent involvement is compensating, and that is parents may be interested in compensating for the struggles that their child faces at school. For example, parents may be more likely to check homework if they feel that their child is struggling with the course material, and parents may be more likely to meet with school principals and teachers if their child is having difficulty at school. So parents tend to do these compensating behaviors to help decrease the amount of negative behaviors or negative outcomes that their child may be experiencing at school. Now, when we combine both the enhancing and the compensating behaviors, we tend to find that overall, more parental involvement is linked with better student outcomes. So as you can see on my graph here, as parental involvement increases, the student outcomes also becomes more positive. However, the graph does level off at one point, and this shows that the over-engaged parents or the hyper-engaged parents do not tend to benefit their children any more than the moderately engaged parents. But a key part to this graph is showing that the parents that are least engaged may actually be putting their children at risk for negative outcomes. So it's important to reach out to these parents. So how do we know which parents are more or less likely to become involved in a school community? Well, for starters, we know that moms are much more likely to become involved as compared to dads. We also know that parents who are more well-educated may value school more and want to contribute towards their children's learning more. We also know that parents that have a more flexible work schedule or who have fewer children at home may have the availability to commit to their school community. Also, research has shown that parents tend to be more involved when they are younger, when their children are younger, and when their daughters are in school as compared to when their sons are in school. And finally, parents who have a minority status tend to be more likely to contribute to a school community. Now, as you look at this list, it may seem as though there are very few parents who would actually have all of these characteristics. So I do want to emphasize that having all of these is not necessary. Parents that have one or two of these characteristics will be more likely to become involved in school. However, it is the parents that have none of these characteristics, that is, Caucasian fathers who have lower levels of education and who have very inflexible work schedules. Those parents may be the least likely to become involved, though it does not mean that it's impossible. They just may need more encouragement. So what type of encouragement may help these parents to become more involved? Well, regardless of demographics, we know that all parents will tend to be more involved if they have certain beliefs. That is, if parents believe that they can make a difference in their child's school community, if the parent believes that they have the skills to make a difference, and if they believe that the school is offering them opportunities to get involved. It's a lot easier for a parent to join a committee or a volunteer organization that already exists rather than trying to start up a new school committee on their own. So as long as parents have these three beliefs, they will be more likely to become involved. However, there's also barriers to parental involvement, and the biggest one is expectations. We know that teachers, schools, and parents tend to have different expectations towards parental involvement. First, we know that schools tend to value parental involvement because they see parents as volunteers that can help enrich the school environment through their expertise and their time. Schools like to use parents as a way to help them address inequality and make up for their own lack of resources. Teachers are a bit different, and they tend to value parental involvement because they see parents as potential homework helpers, tutors, teachers' aides, and behavioral management specialists. But by comparison, parents tend to value their own involvement for a very different reason. Parents like to get involved to help improve their own child's achievement, as well as to contribute their cultural values to the school. So as we see here, parents, teachers, and schools may all really like parental involvement, but they have differing goals and they seem to be moving in opposite directions. And what this can do is make parents feel like they don't want to get involved if their teachers are always calling them to help them manage behavioral problems at school, or if they feel they're being taken advantage of as just a volunteer service for the school to make up for their resources. So rather than viewing this as arrows moving in an opposite direction, it's important to acknowledge these divergent goals of parents, teachers, and schools, and to view them as perhaps cogs or widgets in a system. These cogs and widgets may be moving in opposite directions, but by doing so, they help each other. So how do we get the cogs and widgets moving together so that they can complement each other? Well, a key part of this is listening to parents' voices. If schools really want parents involved, they must be prepared to listen to and acknowledge the viewpoints of parents. Too often, schools refer to parents as partners, but sometimes do not treat them as equal partners. For instance, sometimes decisions are made at the school level without encouraging parents' input, and it's really important to acknowledge this input. Also, if parents are giving to the school community, it's important to think about ways the school community can give back to parents to help make this a two-directional partnership. Secondly, we know that parents will become more involved if they feel their participation is meaningful. What we mean here is that parents are more likely to respond if they receive personalized invitations explaining how their engagement can help their particular child. This works much better than just a generic invitation or just a general call out for participation and volunteers. And finally, we have to acknowledge that parents are a very diverse group. Just as there are many children with exceptionalities and special needs, there's also parents with special conditions. Now, when we say disability, we tend to think of physical disabilities, and certainly there are parents who could benefit from physically accessible schools. But there's a lot more to it than that. Today, many parents are dealing with mental health issues such as anxiety and depression, or learning disabilities and reading problems that they do not want to share with the school. So being sensitive and flexible is important. We know that these parents tend to really appreciate it when there's flexibility, especially over things like appointment times. This can help parents, especially when they have certain health concerns or really rigid work schedules. Also, it's important to make information delivered to parents accessible. We know that parents with reading difficulties tend to prefer receiving information orally, that is, over the phone or face-to-face. If information has to be written, these parents strongly prefer it to be in very short documents that are written with easy-to-read language and that have a very large font size. Now, finally, we know that increased parental involvement can help students, schools, and parents. So parents do benefit from becoming involved. But it never hurts for a school to give back to the parents. And one of the best ways of doing this is showing parents that the school community is there for them. A great example is allowing parents to use the school facilities for things like parental support groups for parents going through a divorce or parents with a disability. This shows the parents that the school community is an open community that they can contribute to and that can give back to them. So I hope I've outlined a few things that will help you to build a parent involvement plan for your school. If you have any questions regarding this presentation, please email me, and I look forward to answering them on our live Q&A session. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone, this is Robert DiDiodato. We'll be taking a closer look at the Partners in Learning Parent Survey. Today I'd like to look at some of the underlying research that's included in our survey. We'll touch on the 7 different domains that are included, some unique features in the survey itself. We'll take a very close look at the reporting attributes, and finally I'll touch on some of the pricing options that are available. So one of the main goals of the Tell 'em For Me platform is to collect leading indicator data and report the information to principals in a timely manner. It's not a survey about accountability. It's not a survey about rank ordering schools. It's about getting meaningful information that can be used by principals to develop school improvement strategies. All of our surveys have underlying research. With the Partners in Learning Parent Survey, it's based primarily on the work of Joyce Epstein's framework for fostering positive relations between the school and the community. And as we've heard from Dr. Hughes, successful schools foster greater communication with parents, encourage parental involvement in their child's schoolwork, and enlist parents to volunteer at their school and participate in school governance. So let's look at the 7 survey domains that are covered in the survey. Parents feel welcome at school, parents are informed, parents support learning at home, the school supports learning, school supports positive behavior, safe schools, and inclusive schools. So let's take a closer look. Under the domain of parents feel welcome at school, there are 7 questions about feeling welcome at school, communication from the school, and approachability of the teachers. With parents are informed, there are 7 questions related to being informed about the child's progress and opportunity for development. Next, we discuss how well their child is doing, importance of school, and encouraging the child to do well. The school supports learning. There are 6 questions about the school's expectation for success and interest in the student's learning. The school supporting positive behavior. There are 6 questions related to fostering positive behavior and environment at school. And then there are questions on safe school and inclusive school. Now, a really distinct feature in the Partners in Learning Parent Survey is that the information is reported confidentially and privately to the school principal. That is, it's for the school principal's eyes only. Nobody else can get access to the specific results for that school. So let's take a look at some of the reporting features. First of all, we have a radar. This is an all-in-one look at the results from the survey. You'll notice the 7 different domains located around this grid. So partners feel welcome, parents are informed, and so forth. The results for the district are plotted on the green line, and the results for the school, for your school, are plotted with the blue line. 10 means strongly agree, a 0 means strongly disagree, and 5 is neutral, neither strongly agree or strongly disagree. So this is a great way to take a quick look to compare the results from a school to all of the other schools that are participating from the district. Then we have a more detailed graph that's available, and this is a high to low distribution. So we're looking at the domain parents feel welcome at school. Here on the left-hand side with the y-axis, you can see the number of parents from a scale of 0 to 25, in this case with my school. You can see the score with a 0 through to a 10. So if we look at this on the right-hand side, you can see that approximately 17 parents scored a 10 in my school on this measure, the high point being with 7.5. And we can see the low score at 2.5. The next graph that's available, I call it a dot plotting, and basically this places the result from each school from a district onto the chart. Again, on the y-axis you can see the number of schools, the score is on the x-axis, and for each of these circles represents the result from a particular school. The results from my school are denoted with this particular triangle. So on the next type of charting that's available, we have the responses to individual questions. So on this measure of parents supporting learning at home, you can see the responses to 2 questions. So we have praise your child for doing well at school. There's an average score of 7.8. And then discussing how well your child is doing in his or her courses, you can see 6.4. So the results to each question from each domain are presented. So the school principal has an opportunity to look at that particular result. Now when you bring it all together on a page, this is what it would look like. So here we have the parents supporting learning at home, the questions, the responses. You can see the distribution graph, the dot plotting, and it's all on one page. So for each domain, we have a report like this, plus the summary report at the beginning. Some other unique features: you have the ability to add 2 multiple choice questions to your survey before it gets started. Our very popular open-ended questions, and in addition to our standard question, which is please tell us some of the things you really like about your school or things that would make it even better, you can add 2 of your own optional questions. And again, to repeat, the information is all reported to you confidentially and privately, so nobody else can see it. So this is a summary of the features that are available. The survey is available in either official language, and so are the reports. The report is available immediately within 2 school days of your survey closing. The reports are delivered confidentially to you. Nobody else can view your reports. It's very simple. It's a one-click PDF report. Simply have to remember your username and password to the site and just click a button and your report is there and accessible. There's a depth in the reporting, both the dot plotting and the distribution graphs. If you're interested, you have the responses to the questions available. We have the very popular open-ended questions included. And with all of our surveys, you have account success management. So this is a skilled person here at the Learning Bar who would work with you to ensure that you're following some best practice techniques. And for the district report, there's immediate access to the results as soon as the survey is completed. Now, the pricing, very affordable. So there's 2 pricing models. For the schools or districts who are presently using our student survey, it's only $100 per school as long as you have a single login. So there's 1 username and 1 password for all of your parents, and they would log in to complete that survey. Or it's $250 if you have a unique password for each family unit. And that means basically sending a username and password home in the book bag for each family. Or if you're not using our student survey, the cost would be $500 for the school, irregardless of the method that you'd like to use. So thank you very much, and we look forward to hearing your questions.
Thank you very much, everybody. This is a little presentation on how we as a school use TTFM data, and we have used it for many years to encourage a discussion with parents. And as I go through the presentation, you'll see that I will talk about parent information that we've used from the TTFM, and how we use student information. We have a much longer history of using student TTFM data than parent TTFM data, but it's still us using that data to encourage some discussion with parents. So it's ultimately it's and why we use TTFM data for that discussion. We in the province of New Brunswick have what's called a Parent School Support Committee, and it's within the Education Act. So every school has a committee such as what I have at George Street Middle School. One of the things that I do at this committee that many of the parents, especially from my feeder schools, the elementary schools, say that they've noticed that we do a lot at George Street is that we share a lot of what we're doing with our data. We're not just giving them the data, we're actually using it to pinpoint places of discussion, and then as a school we try things and then we go back and look at what is the data telling us from that. And of course, like all good schools, I hope we use a combination of soft data and hard data. And basically some of the roles of the PSSC is that they really do help me in shaping the school improvement plan. They're partners in that. And they do review our school report card, which we do have available on our website. And if ever you did go to our website, you would find it loaded with TTFM graphs. So here's an example of what I shared. We discussed one year. It's not necessarily what I shared, but it was something that we discussed. We had. Because we are a very large middle school, we're probably the largest middle school in the province of New Brunswick, one of the issues that came out was parents were not comfortable with how we did parent-teacher conferences. And, we looked at the TTFM data, and it was quite clear. We looked at the data that was provided. It was quite clear that we were well below district and province. Like, we're probably the largest middle school, but we're not the only large middle school. So obviously there was something that wasn't quite right with how we did our parent-teacher conference. And then that started a discussion on what can we do. And within that discussion with the parents and then back to the staff, we tried something different. Because one of the issues that was popping up was that parents didn't find that we had enough time allotted for them. Remember, they came from elementary school, where probably just one grade level was the size of their whole school, to this large school where all of a sudden we were just allotting them just minimal amount of time, 5-10 minutes, for a parent-teacher conference. And we were not a school that's ready yet to do student-led conferences. So with that, one of the suggestions was to have an open house where we invite parents to meet the teachers, have an informal chat about, their child's progress, and to always do that before parent-teacher. In other words, if parent-teacher was scheduled between 7 and 9 that evening, we would have 1 hour of an open house, and it would be any other parent. And usually we try to do it with parents that students don't have that major concern. And we tried it out basically 1 year. Every grade level did it. Parents dropped in. Some grade levels we had probably like 100 parents. Others we had maybe 60 parents that were there. But it was another way. And so then we used the data afterwards to take a look to see, okay, did this sort of have parents think that they were a little bit more satisfied with it? And as you could see, from 2012 to 2013, parents definitely were satisfied. That's quite a significant jump when you look at going from 53% satisfied to 67% satisfied. In other words, guess what we're doing this past school year? We're doing it again. In the fall, just this past fall, our first parent-teacher interview, everybody had, as a matter of fact, one grade level actually expanded it to an hour and a half of parent drop-in. And parents would just drop in, and teachers were just there. And it was, there was coffee, and we even had the band playing some music. So we really jazzed it up this past fall. So we're really interested to see what the perception data would say in the future. Because as you can see, we're still a bit below district and province. But with that said, we still made some huge strides with that. So that's an example of how we basically use the data. It gives a sense to the parents that they're being heard. It was the parents that identified through the data that there was a problem with our ways of doing parent-teacher interviews or parent-teacher conferences. And with that said, they highlighted some things, and then we tried them as a staff because we felt the same as well, because teachers would have parent-teacher conferences on other nights to fit the needs of parents. So anyways, because of the data collection, we were able to do that. Parents feel they're being heard, and using that data, you collate. It helps the school target areas of concerns, and then you see if what you're doing works. And this is an example of something that we did that works. I easily could have gave you an example of something we found out this doesn't work. So we stop. Whenever the data is not showing or decreasing, we just stop doing it. And that's the other thing that you do with data. I could have easily have given another example of something that just doesn't work. But I wanted to keep it on the positive of where here's something we tried, the data's telling you that, and then you move from that. Another thing we do at our PRCC is we always take a look at some of the major issues and we take a look at the student voices. And one of the big things we did over the many years is to, a large middle school is to try to really curb bullying within our school. And one of the things we were working hard as a school on really trying to work on the victims of bullying, to get them to report bullying. And then basically we started looking at some research, and we stopped just focusing on the victim. We started focusing a lot on the bystander. And we put a lot of energy, time on getting other kids to report bullying that occurred to bystanders. And parents were wondering, why would we, sort of shift? Well, this is the data of why. Because when we started focusing, and within a few short months of where the first set of graphs were the victim, and it didn't increase of them reporting bullying, but it definitely increased when we were working with the bystanders. And as you could see, the data was quite clear. And what that did is that provided a buy-in on the part of the parents in what we're doing with our anti-bullying programs or our safe schools programs. Parents started to realize, okay, what you're doing makes sense. And over the years, because I just showed you those two graphs from 2012 because they were so drastic, it's just that it's showing the exact same thing in 2013. And it basically, we're realizing that the victims of bullying, it's very difficult for them to report bullying, but the bystanders, it's very easy for them. And we have to make it easier for them to report. And really the parents were buying into that. That's an example of data that I would share with them. And not only that, but then all of a sudden, we have a parent that says, you know what, your bully report forms, I'm going to make these beautiful boxes for you to where the forms could be placed. So we have this parent that is a woodworking, made these gorgeous boxes for kids, and we have them all over the school now where kids could just drop in a bully report form. Then I have a parent who's actually an owner of a high IT company who now created for us, just exclusive for George Street, an anti-bully, a place where a child could go onto our website and report bullying. And it's there right now on our website, and the child could just click in, and it was created like that. That's how you get the parents involved into your school, is with the data. And of course, we know that it's working because when you have 92% of your family saying that their child feels safe at this large downtown middle school that services quite a variety of kids, then you're doing something's right. I want that at 100%, but I'll take the 92% for now. It is an increase from the low to mid 80s just a few years ago. So I hope what I just showed you is how we use TTFM data, which is ready-made data. I don't have to make graphs with TTFM. They're there. All I have to do is curtail it, work a bit around it. I could go to grade levels. I could go male, female. There's even now an option for me because we have a high First Nations population. There's even a way for me to find data specific to that. And then when parents are asking me, Pierre, do you have this or that? It's real easy for me to generate, and then to generate the data, but then also to generate the discussions. So thank you very much, and I hope that was helpful.
Thank you for attending this segment of the Raising the Bar series, and a special thank you to Kathleen Hughes and Pierre Plourde for their insight on this important topic of parental involvement in our schools.